Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's Disney related video. Today we are talking about the differences between Disneyland Resort in California and Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. So I'm going to be going through different kind of like categories and pointing out as many of the differences as I can, but they are very different parks. So we're going to be talking about like the difference in size, attractions, food, hotels, the fast pass system, the different distances between the parks, transportation, special events, nighttime shows, and then how much time I would suggest spending in each of the, not necessarily the parks, but like the resorts as a whole. So without further ado, let's get started. So first of all, size. Disneyland Resort has two parks, Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure. Walt Disney World has four parks, Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. So Disneyland Resort came first and Walt Disney World came second. Walt Disney World, they had the blessing of size. That is what Walt Disney always said. So they bought a ton of land and like there is still so much room in Walt Disney World Resort. So obviously Walt Disney World is a lot bigger. And Disneyland in California was kind of built into a space that already had stuff surrounding it, so they don't have as much room to expand. They are kind of like trying their best, but Disneyland is more of like things have to close for other things to open, which is also true at Walt Disney World, but like in terms of Star Wars Land, yes, the Streets of America and the backlot had to close in Hollywood Studios, but they still had more space to expand into, whereas Disneyland does not. And like the Marvel Land that's coming to Disneyland, A Bug's Land had to close. So kind of similar in that way, but size completely different. The park, like Disneyland, is much smaller. Everything is kind of like closer together, whereas in Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom is a bit more spread out. It's a lot more distance to walk between parks. You can get a lot of steps in either park, but for size, Walt Disney World is much bigger. Attractions. There are so many attractions, like just taking into consideration the four parks versus the two parks, obviously Walt Disney World is going to have more rides, but for the classics, like they have their Space Mountain in both parks, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Splash Mountain, Pirates of the Caribbean, It's a Small World, Peter Pan's Flight, Winnie the Pooh, Little Mermaid, like the ride, but there are also rides that are unique to each coast. Disneyland, Indiana Jones Adventure, I believe it's called. One of the best rides I've ever been on. Absolutely loved it. If you're going to Disneyland, make sure to go on that. At Walt Disney World, I'm trying to think of like what my favorite ride is. Let's say Expedition Everest, for example. They don't have that. So there are both, like there are advantages. There are a lot more attractions in Walt Disney World, but like Disneyland has a lot, like Fantasyland, there are rides like crammed in there, like Pinocchio, Snow White's Scary Adventures, rides that don't exist in Walt Disney World. So if you're going to one and you have been to the other, I would suggest still try the rides because they are completely different. Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland is so much longer than Walt Disney World. Like Haunted Mansion is set up differently. Splash Mountain, you're sitting individually, whereas Splash Mountain in Walt Disney World, you're sitting side by side. Space Mountain in Walt Disney World, you're sitting individually. Space Mountain in Disneyland, you're sitting side by side. So there are a ton of attractions that are unique to each location, but I would suggest trying the ones that are the same anyways. Obviously, if you only have so much time, like do the ones that are unique to that area, but if you have the time, do the classics everywhere. Food. Food is everywhere in both resorts. I found in Disneyland Park there were tons of food options, especially in like New Orleans Square, Frontierland area. There, I'm trying to think of like foods that are unique. If you're at Disneyland, just in New Orleans Square, you can get beignets, which you can't get in the parks at Walt Disney World. And like the Monte Cristo, the churros are really good in Disneyland. There are just, and then there are like just restaurants that don't exist. There are ones that are kind of similar, like the Plaza is in both Magic Kingdom and Disneyland Park. I'm trying to think of any others. But there are, like, just because there's only 2 parks, there are still a ton of food options. But there is no dining plan in Disneyland. In Walt Disney World, you can get a dining plan. There are so many restaurants. There are international cuisine restaurants in Epcot, just in World Showcase. Trying to think of stuff that's unique to Walt Disney World. You can get beignets at Port Orleans French Quarter Resort. What is a food that's unique to Disney World? I don't know. You can get Mickey waffles everywhere. You can get turkey legs. I don't know. There's a lot. Like, you can get Dole Whips at both parks. I would say just in terms of like restaurants, there's a lot more variety and a lot more options, again, just because of the difference in size. So don't worry, you won't go hungry at both parks. In terms of hotels, Walt Disney World has Disney resort hotels in 3 different categories. There's deluxe resorts, there's moderate resorts, and there's value resorts. Plus they have like Disney Springs area. There are other branded hotels that are also now kind of included in the Disney like umbrella, that you can get fast passes when you stay there. You can get transportation to the Disney parks, everything like that. At Disneyland, again, because it was kind of built in an area where stuff already existed, there are some Disney hotels, but there are 3. There's the Grand Californian, there's the Disneyland Hotel, and then there's Paradise Pier Hotel. But then it's all other brands. So like when I went there, we stayed at a Best Western plus Park Place Inn, because there's multiple Best Westerns, but it was still within walking distance. So don't feel like you need to stay at a Disney resort there. Also, all of those ones would kind of be considered like a deluxe level pricing wise. And then Disney World, you can also stay offsite, but there's a lot more options if you want to be in the Disney bubble. It is harder to be in the Disney bubble in Disneyland because like there's real world like right outside the park. But so hotels, tons of options. And if you're going to Disneyland, make sure to take a look at Disney. There are like Good Neighbor resorts that are ones that are close by that you can get tickets through and everything like that. Fast pass system. So at Disneyland, they use the paper fast pass system where you have to go to a machine, enter your park and insert your park ticket, and then you get a fast pass slip that says the time that you can come back. And then for an additional cost, you can pay to get something called Max Pass, which allows you to make fast pass reservations from the app on your phone, but that is $15 a day. If you want to hear all about Max Pass and whether I would recommend it, I just did a video on that, and I will put that up in the corner, a card up there for you. At Walt Disney World, there it is all on the app. You schedule your fast passes, you get 3 per day. At certain parks there are certain tiers, so you can only pick 1 from this tier and then 2 from this tier, and you do that 60 days in advance if you're staying at a Disney Resort hotel and 30 days in advance if you are not. But there is a lot more planning that goes into Walt Disney World, and it is all on your phone. There's no paper fast passes, anything like that. Once you use your 3 allotments, then you can do an additional one. Once you use that, then you can get another one, and so on and so on and so on. But you can see just the difference in planning. Also, and back to dining for a second, dining reservations at Walt Disney World, you can make reservations 180 days, which is 6 months before each trip. At Disneyland, it is 60 days. 60 days or 30 days, I'm pretty sure it's 60 days. But because of the locals, like the number of locals who don't plan, because not as much planning goes into Disneyland vacations, you can't plan it out as much, which is kind of frustrating for somebody who's used to going to Walt Disney World. That was one thing I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do when we go to Disneyland, because I have dining reservations, but that's it. Whereas at Walt Disney World, you know, okay, we're gonna go on Small World, and then we're gonna go on Peter Pan's Flight, and then we're gonna go on Space Mountain, and we got these 3 rides like down, like that's for sure what we're gonna do. And then it's just kind of more open from there. But so that is basic Fast Pass. And then at Disneyland, you also need to get a Fast Pass for nighttime shows like Fantasmic, which I will get to in a bit. Next, the distance between the parks. At Disneyland, Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure are walking distance. You can hop back and forth all day to your heart's content, and it is easy peasy. We did it multiple times when we went in November. At Disney World, you cannot walk to 2 different parks. Like, you cannot walk from one park to another park. The easiest way would be to take a form of transportation from one park to a resort that's close to another park, or a bus to the other park. But you can't walk. You can walk from some resorts to the parks, but you cannot walk from park to park because, again, they're spaced out, that there's quite a distance between them. Next, transportation. So at Disneyland, because the parks are walking distance, you do not have to get on a bus or anything like that. There is transportation to some hotels, but again, a lot of stuff is within walking distance. It was really nice to not have to get onto a Disney bus or anything like that. At Walt Disney World, there are buses from resorts to parks. There are buses from parks to parks. There is a monorail that goes from Magic Kingdom to the Grand Floridian, Polynesian Resort, and the Contemporary Resort. There are boats from, let's see if I can do all of this, from Wilderness Lodge, Polynesian, Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom. At Epcot, you can get a bus to the Swan or Dolphin, Beach Club, Yacht Club, and the Boardwalk. And you can get a boat from Port Orleans Riverside, Port Orleans French Quarter, I believe, and Saratoga Springs and Old Key West to Disney Springs. I think that's it. So there are buses, monorail, and boats. I think that's all of them. And then you can walk from some resorts as well. So a lot more transportation, a lot more time that needs to be like thought out to spend on transportation at Walt Disney World because of how far everything is. Next, special events. So Walt Disney World has festivals at Epcot, like the Festival of the Arts, the Flower and Garden Festival, Food and Wine Festival. At Disneyland, Disney California Adventure has a Food and Wine Festival, and I believe that's it. At Disneyland, there is a Halloween party. At Disney World, there is a Halloween party and a Christmas party. And then there are like early morning, like at like Toy Story Land, you can pay to have access to the park earlier. Both have, well, okay, trying to make this as not confusing as possible. Disney World has extra magic hours at the park, either earlier or later for Disney Resort Hotel guests. Disneyland has early morning magic hours for guests that either have a 3-day park ticket or longer at Disneyland Resort, and at Disney California Adventure for guests staying at exclusively Disney resorts. Okay, I think that's it for special events. And then nighttime shows. So Disneyland has whatever Disney fireworks. They rotate frequently based on like, there was Pixar Fest going on, so there was a special one, like Christmas special ones and stuff like that. And then there's Fantasmic, which you need to have a fast pass for because it's standing room only and you want to get a spot because otherwise you won't be able to see super great. And then at California Adventure there is World of Color, which is like a fountain show, which I did not see because it wasn't going on when I was there, but from what, like, the tiny clips that I've seen, it looks pretty cool. And then at Walt Disney World there is Happily Ever After, the fireworks show at Magic Kingdom, Illuminations Reflections of Earth at Epcot, which is fireworks show, Fantasmic at Hollywood Studios, which is different than the Disneyland one, and the Rivers of Light, which is at Animal Kingdom, which is like a kind of light float boat show on the water. No fireworks because of the animals at Animal Kingdom. Magic Kingdom has the Festival of Fantasy Parade and there's no nighttime parade. Disneyland has Mickey's, there is a daytime parade, and then Paint the Night kind of comes and goes as a nighttime parade. So check the website before you go, see what's going on. And then lastly, the amount of time that I would suggest to spend at each park. At Walt Disney World, I generally go for about a week, but there is no way you are going to see everything in a week. You can go back again and again, and you can do new things, different things. Things are constantly changing. Like, there is just so much to see. And then at Disneyland and Disney California Adventure, I went for 3 days and I feel like I saw pretty much everything that I wanted to. I would say 5 days you'd be doing stuff again, which, like, we did certain rides again, but I feel like 5 days would probably be like the maximum I would recommend. I think 3 to 5 days would be ideal. Like Walt Disney World, I could go for like a month, but I think a week is generally a good recommendation to go by. And as for which I prefer, I am in Toronto, Canada, so for me, Walt Disney World has always been my, like, home park. If I lived on the other side of the country, then I would probably say the same for Disneyland, but it's just where I've been the most. It is where I am, like, comfortable, where I have, like, the nostalgia that I would prefer it. But again, if I was living on the other side of the country and Disneyland was easier to get to, then I would probably say the same thing about that. That does not mean that I do not like Disneyland and that I would not go back. I, of course, would go back. It's just flying across the country for me. So, but we did that on the way to Hawaii, and I would 100% do that again. I loved Disneyland. I loved walking in Walt's footsteps and just being where he had been. It was a place that I always wanted to go and didn't ever really think that I was gonna go, and to be there was magical and perfect. Walt Disney World has a very special place in my heart. I go as often as I can. I got engaged there, so it is very special. I would still think of Walt Disney World as like my home resort, but I love them both. I think that if you are a Disney fan, you need to see both. I'd be like, go around the whole world and see all of them, because that would be awesome. I don't know if that would ever happen for me, but I do hope to see all of the parks someday. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about either park, let me know, and let me know what you think. Do you prefer one over the other? If you had to choose, which resort would you choose? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching.